ಹಾಗೆ ನಾನು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರಾಮಚಂದ್ರ USA ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ನಾನು ವೇದಿಕೆಗೆ ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರಾಮಚಂದ್ರ USA, ರಾಮಿ.
All right. How many of you feel sorry for me? I'm the only guy standing between you and lunch now. I'm also the guy that follows all of these eloquent speakers, the jokesters, the pranksters. And I sort of follow on the lines of Jayaprakash, as he stated earlier. You know, in any class, whether it's high school or college or medical school, you have two groups and possibly a third group. You have the nerds and you have the cool guys. And as Jayaprakash said, we're neither the cool ones nor the nerdy types. We're sort of in the middle, chugging along in this journey. And my journey started like all of you in 1966, but I need to tell you a little bit about my journey just prior to that, what led to this medical school. It was the dream of my mother. And she said, you know, we have lawyers in the family, we have accountants, we have engineers, and there's no doctor. You are going to become a doctor. And at the age of 13, I had to decide that I was going to become a doctor. And you try telling this to your kids today. They're not going to put up with it. And how this started has a little bit of history. I went to a school called Mahila Seva Samaj. Anybody familiar with that school? Hudigiro, huh? Hudigiro. And the way of punishing you in Mahila Samaj was, this was unthinkable in the minds of boys. They would make you sit between two girls if you're naughty. And you know, I'm sure a lot of you in med school would have wanted the different thing, but that was the ultimate insult to a boy if you were made to sit between two girls. So this was the scenario then. So once I had something, you know, tonsillitis, whatever, swollen lymph nodes, and my mother took me to our family physician. Some of you might have heard of Dr. Ramarao, who was in Chamarajpet. He was famous, and he was one of the best doctors ever, and he was a great source of inspiration for me. So I went to Ramarao, and you know, the typical exam room those days, it was this many people sitting. And there was one desk, there was no separate exam room, nothing. So this man examines me and said, oh, okay, you want an injection kodabekiga. So right in front of everybody, including two of my neighbor girls, pulls my pants down, boom, I get this injection. And I let out a squeal like you wouldn't believe, and apparently I said something to him. And there was a great deal of laughter in that room. So when my mother told me, you have to become a doctor, I said, yeah, ma, I do well in math. Well, my brother is an engineer. I want to do math. She said, no. This is what you told Dr. Ramarao then. You said, ನನ್ನ ಟೈಮ್ ಬರಲಿ, ನಾನು ಮೆಡಿಕಲ್ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಆಗಿ ಬಂದು ನಿನಗೆ ಸೂಜಿ ಹಾಕ್ತೇನೆ ಅದೇ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ. So that sort of convinced me. I said, okay, I'll become a doctor, go to med school. And you know, reality is this. We were all there in 1966. And let's not kid ourselves. We were kids. Today, you wouldn't pass high school at that age. So at the age of 15 or 16, and you know, some were a little more senior than us, we were thrown into medical school, and it was aptly named pre-professional because we were anything but professional at that point. And I still remember our statistics, Vishwanath Auro, he used to live in a hostel up the street from my home in Chamarajpet. So I used to see him going for his walks and for his meals, so I couldn't misbehave in his class. But most of us, I think we have to admit, we went to the statistics class more for amusement value, not to learn anything. Right? The only thing I remember is his definition. collection, compilation, and interpretation of data in any sphere of inquiry. You remember that? That's the only piece of statistics I remember. And I wish I had paid attention, because when I wrote my first paper, I had no clue what I was writing. Mean, median, graphs. So I wish I had paid more attention. But somebody already mentioned about Dr. Parsati. Now, through our journey in medical school, we had a lot of teachers, we had a lot of professors. Most of them gave us information. I cannot honestly tell you that all of them provided inspiration. Parsati was one who provided a lot of inspiration. He made men out of boys. If you remember, he wouldn't let anybody come in. He would have that attender stand outside if you weren't wearing shoes. And people came from different parts of the state with different backgrounds, etc. So he instilled some pride in you. And if you remember, he also made some of the students give little lectures. That was the first experience in public speaking for a lot of us. So Parsati is the kind of man who really, truly inspired me. And I told myself, when I grow up, I want to be like him. Well, I got his hairdo all right. But I never could be as eloquent and as good a teacher as he was, even though I tried. Right? I used to teach medical students, I used to teach residents and so forth. But that's the kind of inspiration that we all had as we went through our journey in medical school. I know I have a lot of other stories to share, but in the interest of time, I'll cut through that. But a couple of interesting episodes that I must point out to you. Mohan Isaac, where is he? God bless Mohan. We shifted from Chamarajpet to Indiranagar, and a lot of times he used to give me a ride. So I remember once standing in the bus station, and Mohan saw me standing there, and he stops his scooter. And it was all kind of dusty in the back, so I rubbed all of the dirt and tapped it a couple of times, and he just took off. It's like the BTS bus. The conductor would get in and give a couple of taps. Right, and it used to go. So Mohan found himself talking to himself for about 5 or 10 minutes, not realizing that there's nobody sitting behind him. He had left me right back there. And he turned around and came back, picked me up, and we had a lot of interesting episodes like that. And one other episode is in my pre-medical school journey, we used to cut through this Minto Hospital and Vani Vilas to get to City Market from Chamarajpet. And as young kids, you were enthralled by some of the stuff going on the sidewalk. There'd always be a snake show and some snake charmer, somebody. And one of those shows was an interesting show where there was a gathering. I must have been about 10 or 11 or 12, standing and looking. And the guy says, he called 2 people, and he said something, some mantra, whatever, and he said, mut nodko. And you saw fright in the faces of these 2 guys as they examined certain part of the anatomy where the sun doesn't shine. That part was missing. And a friend of mine and I took off, and we could have competed in any sprint. So while I was in medical school, must have been around the 4th to the 5th year, walking from City Market to the medical school, I saw a similar gathering. Part of me said, no, don't go there. So I passed that, and there was a guy sitting next, and he says, come here, come here, come here. I had my white coat on, he said, hey, your balls are falling. I was shocked. I said, what the heck is he trying to tell me? And then he points to my head and said, your ball, yeah? All right. So I didn't know in Hindi, ball meant something, hair. So medical school was an interesting experience. I'm sure you all have your own stories to tell, but it did three things for me. Number one, it laid a foundation for a great education. I think we're all here, we've all experienced success, and even though there was a lot of talk going on in WhatsApp as to how we don't owe much to BMC, I'm sorry, I disagree with some of those things that went on. I owe BMC a lot. I am what I am because of BMC. Number two, it gave me the opportunity to get to know all of you. I'm sorry some of the others who are with us are not here. I'm sorry that some are departed. But without that, I wouldn't have the opportunity to experience and be with greatness. And that's what we're seeing here today, greatness. Three, the most important one, that's where I met my soulmate. She gave me everything in life. She is responsible for my success, and I never realized that she could be such a great mom to my children. So, hats off to you. And I know I'll come back with a different hat when I come and talk to you about the work done by the organizing committee. So, thank you all very much. It has been a great journey. And I second Dwarka's proposition. We will have this in the US, and you guys start planning. And I hope we are all around to enjoy this. And we will make it fun. I'm not a great fan of Trump, but we will make this great.
Did you give injection to Dr. Ramrao?
That's a sad part, actually. Some of you might remember his son was our classmate in PUC, Venkatesh Ramrao. He was the last name, right? I never got a chance to do it. I wanted to specialize in kidney transplantation. In fact, I spent 6 months of fellowship. Even though I could do transplant surgery, this man died of kidney failure when dialysis was non-existent in India. To this day, he still remains my inspiration. He was just an amazing man who put his patients ahead of everything. I'm remiss on one thing. I forgot to mention this. There's one group of people that we've not thanked today, and that is our patients. These are the ones who really made us who we are. Right? They gave up their freedom. They gave up privacy. We didn't treat them as well as we should have when we were in medical school. And without them, we wouldn't be the clinicians we are. So thank you, patients.
ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎರಡು ವೋಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್ನ ಮಾತಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಮೇಲೆ ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರಾಮಚಂದ್ರ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ.